Welcome to About That Bible with Every Nation NYC. We are here to help you get more out of that Bible. And today we're talking about the Book of Ruth. Is it a guide to helping us find our Boaz? To dating? I've got opinions about that, and you're going to find out what they are, because they're strong opinions. But the Book of Ruth is basically about this woman who moves with her mother-in-law to the land of Israel, and it's all about how she finds her husband, basically. But, oh my goodness, we are going to talk about why it is not a guide to dating. Here we go. So, we're talking about Ruth, that book in the Bible, where you get to get your Boaz.
It's all about finding a Boaz, isn't it?
What do we mean by that?
What would one mean by finding their Boaz?
The good-looking, loaded one in Christian culture.
All right.
So, why, and this, I am quite impassioned about this, possibly
Yes.
more than it's worth. That's okay, I'm okay with that.
Let's explore this.
That sometimes I'm too impassioned about things that more than they're really worth. But why is the Book of Ruth in the Bible not actually about dating, or is not a guide to dating? Can we just put that to bed before I have an overly impassioned opinion?
Yeah, so it's a narrative written about people, about how they met. And I think you're at danger if you ever take somebody who met somebody else and take their relationship and use it as an archetype for your relationship.
That's
of course
true.
It's going to be wildly different,
Even
especially when it's ancient, right?
Yeah, even if they're your friends. You'd be like, well, that's how I'm going to find my partner for life. That would be weird. But this is set in a context, a very specific context that is ancient and not really relevant to, not like very easy to put it into the current context of dating.
Totally not. They're doing stuff that we would never consider doing today in relationships. Let's talk about some of those
Like
things.
what? Like what, Nathan?
All right. So first off, we don't consider that this is coming from a context of suffering, right?
Yeah.
Naomi and Ruth are widows. They are trying to escape famine. They move to Moab. Naomi moves to Moab to escape famine. Then they fall into hard times there. All of their husbands die. They move back to Bethlehem, foreshadowing,
Dun, dun, dun.
and experience more hardship there. They have to go out into the fields and glean. It's not dignified work.
I mean, there is a reason that the Bible does spend quite a lot of time being like, do stuff for widows. Because basically, the culture didn't do stuff for widows. Needed some help.
They were deeply vulnerable people.
So as a rule, unless you are looking to date as a widow, it's not really fitting. That's like the first one. It doesn't really totally fit. Because like these women are desperate. These women are incredibly poor. These women have no like agency within society.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they meet this guy. It also comes with that context of laws, those ancient laws of all the things they're supposed to do for these widows. What's supposed to happen. As you read that, you are meant to know those, and it's sometimes can be hard because we don't have those.
It's really odd. So there was no life insurance at the time, and so to take care of widows, family members were supposed to step in. So somebody falls into hard times. There was a lineage, a line of family successors that would have had the right, or really more of an obligation, to step in and take care of your cousins or your niece or your aunts or whoever it might be. And we don't really understand the relationship that Boaz has with Naomi and Ruth, but there's some sort of family tie there.
It's supposed to be their kinship redeemer.
Yes.
They're basically their family redeemer. He's supposed to make it all right for them.
Yeah, he's supposed to step in and take care of them in some way. And that was his obligation. It was his responsibility.
And that doesn't really fit with our current context.
Not at all. No.
And that also brings about the idea that this is actually quite a transactional story.
Yes. I think when you understand, I would agree entirely. When you understand that these laws are in place, it's not romance. And I've heard even other commenters on YouTube reading so much romance into this thing.
Yeah, it's not my idea of a romantic
It's
story.
not a love story.
No.
This is about somebody who is faithful to their job, faithful to what God has told them to do, leaving gleanings out in their field, taking care of the widows, taking care of their family. Boaz is a good man. Don't get me wrong. He's a great guy. But he's a great guy not because he fell in love, but because he was faithful to what God told him to do.
And I'm not sure like Ruth fell in love with him either. I think she's like, this is my way out. I'm in like total poverty. There's no other way out. This guy can get me out of this.
Yeah. There's a key moment in the middle of it where Naomi, the mother-in-law, tells Ruth, her daughter-in-law, go to Boaz in the night, uncover his feet and lay at his feet, and we would read it as kind of like get yourself dolled up, right? But the commentators are saying that that Ruth would have been in mourning clothes, signifying that she was a widow, signifying that she was in mourning for her lost husband, that she was not.
Yeah, and there'd be whole rules about that, and I'm sure it was also supposed to be like back off, but also give me some food. They're supposed to say that, right? I don't know, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, don't think I was taken, I'm not taken, but give me some food.
And so her changing her clothes and putting on this cloak is a signal. It's not just get yourself dolled up, ladies. And so I've definitely heard like these are the steps to, you got to put yourself out there, you got to do this and that. And this is not how we're supposed to read this text. This is, again, not a guide to how to date in the 21st century.
There is always that danger, and I think we do this in a lot of stories where we read the story and we put ourselves immediately into this Bible story, and we start, in order to fit into it, we start like trying to pick it apart for like, okay, so Ruth, I would like to find my Boaz. So this is what Ruth did, and you start like taking like to-dos from what is a very specific scenario. And it's actually like a really narrow story.
It is a very tight story.
In like just after Judges, which is like goes through like hundreds of years, like at like really fast. Like this judge did this, and it was like boom, and then all of a sudden you're like into this very specific story.
True.
And so when we start applying a very specific story to like, I don't know, your life in the Western world.
So you mentioned like an important piece of context. This is happening during the time of the Judges. During a time of very little humanity, very little. It's hard to pick apart what God is doing in that moment. But I think what we're supposed to get from this story, what we are supposed to get, is that in these detailed moments, God is still moving. God is still working. The narrator never mentions God, but the work of God is there. They just happen to move back to Bethlehem, again, foreshadowing. They just happen to be gleaning from Boaz's field. Boaz just happens to see her that day and say, my protection is on you. Use the resources of my land. Drink the water that's available here. And then it just happens that he is their kinsman next in line. Yeah.
And so it's like about this very specific, like God is moving in this time. What else can we say that this story is about in this context? Because to bear in mind that Judges context, when it says this was in the time of Judges, in the Book of Judges, we see a lot of just things going really bad and getting really perverse. And so you're saying like it's about God moving. What else can we say that Ruth is actually about? Not a dating guide.
So yes, the opening bit sets in Judges, and then all of these serendipitous things happen, signifying the hand of God. And then at the end, we get the boring part, right? The lineage. What's it called?
I actually quite like it. The genealogy.
The genealogy.
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of a genealogy.
I think that's a sign of that you're understanding more of the biblical text.
Well, true. Because if you don't understand who you're reading, you're just like, this is so boring.
So Ruth and Boaz get pregnant and give birth to Obed. Obed gives birth to, or has a baby. He doesn't give birth, does he?
To get down to some fundamentals, he does not give birth.
Okay. Getting things clear. He he fathers Jesse. Jesse fathers David, the king, who's going to be the answer to the big judge's problem of everybody doing what was right in their own eyes because there was no king.
Ah,
God's faithful.
boom.
And he's working through this foreign Moabite
Yes,
woman,
which I love as a foreigner.
the
living in New York
outcast
City.
widow. Yeah.
Yeah, he's working through that to bring about his way of getting away from all the bad things that were happening at that moment in time.
Mhm.
I love actually how it is like about the mundane, how God is moving in what is quite mundane situation, or like a like a small situation, like just a family situation.
Yes.
Like these are not kings at that moment in time. These are not super important people. They're not judges. They're not going to war. They're
It's
just trying to eat.
it's something that we would be trying to do. I mean, we concern ourselves with eating. We do concern ourselves with romance. We do concern ourselves with finance. And that's kind of the world that we live in. And God is moving there as well. And so I don't think that this story should be applied directly to dating relationships. However, there are some things that are in there for those who are hoping to find a romantic partner. There are tokens of grace for Ruth that I think we could pick up as well. Not directly as here's the 5 steps to be like Ruth and get a man like Boaz.
Put your cloak on.
Yeah.
Sleep at his feet. I've literally read that. That's the reason I'm like super impassioned. Like, go and sit at their feet. Don't do that. So,
one other thing that it does that I think it can help us as modern people. These people lived in a very transactional society, which we don't. Now we swipe credit cards that is connected to, it's just not very physical.
What is it connected to? Don't even know.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not an economist, but there's the moment between what we gain and what we lose. It doesn't feel like a very real transaction. We're not trading chickens for goats. We're not trading eggs for cheese. We're trading things on our cards for food that we order online that arrive 3 days later, that we're billed for 4 days later, that we actually have to pay from our bank account that we've never seen the money of a month later. The transaction is lost on us. And for them, the transaction was also familial. There was a family transaction. And because these women had no status, they had no identity, they had, like, within themselves, they had no place in the society. They needed somebody to redeem them, to give them status again. And it's something that we don't feel, but it was done through marriage. It was done through being brought back into a family, back into even their own line of family.
Yeah, because they have this field, and presumably they can't do anything with this field until like somebody, like in the laws and the culture, they're not allowed to do anything with that field until like someone marries them.
Yes.
And he can do something with the field.
Yeah. And so it helps me understand why I need to be the bride of Christ, that he is our true and better kinsman redeemer, buying us back from the death that we are surrounded by and from our lack of status in society and our outcast status, how he brings us back in. It's not something that we experience in our modern society. It's not something that we would really think of, like, oh man, I need to get married to be somebody. That's not something that we think. And that's a very positive thing. But we still, spiritually, this is our reality, and we still need to be married into Christ and his family as the bride of Christ, being the church.
Which I much prefer as a reading of Ruth, because sometimes when we just apply it straight to like dating, you're left with this feeling of like, because this often applies to women, I'm just going to say that, you need a man, right? Like, you're nobody until you have a man. Because if you apply it directly, that's kind of the conclusion you can come to. Whereas actually when we're saying, no, Boaz is a type of at least a foreshadowing of Jesus that's going to come, and then everybody needs Jesus, whether you're a man or a woman, then I'm like, okay, I can live with that.
Yes. Yeah. The men and women are equal. Is a broader point when you read it in the full context of Scripture. If you just read this, then
you just read it like dating, how to, then you're like, oh, better find my really loaded man.
Totally unequal.
Yeah. But so when we read it, it's really actually about Jesus. But is there anything we can learn about I suppose, like relationships or being people of God in this book.
Hmm. I'm really struck by Boaz. I mentioned this earlier, but he's a faithful dude. He does what he's supposed to do. He steps up and is responsible for a problem that is not directly his own.
And in the context of Judges, like this was the law that he was kind of supposed to do this,
Mhm.
but in the context of Judges, no one was doing any of the laws.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's like actually remarkable that he was like, I'm going to follow the law.
So there's a foreign woman eating the fruit or the food of his field, and he doesn't just overlook it. He blesses it and protects her.
And he's actually one of those people that's not just like, I'm going to be totally legally following the law that I have to give this food. He's like going over and above.
Yes. He blesses her. He protects her. He lets her drink the water that the men have drawn out of the well for her. And then he steps up and marries her. There's actually another guy that's closer.
I like how he doesn't get name checked. Almost like, we'll not give him a name because we don't want to like shame him. That's why I read it as like, oh, we'll not highlight that he didn't do the thing.
Yeah, so there was another guy that Boaz has to go and check in with at the city gates. Yeah. And it's like, hey, there's this field that you can have. And the guy's like, hey, I'm down for a field.
Love a field.
If my
fields.
relative had a field and he's passed away, then I'll have that field. And he's like, by the way, it comes with Ruth, this foreign lady. And he's like, second thought, it's all yours, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to back off that.
And there's weird inheritance laws there because you're kind of supposed to carry on a different line. And he's obviously like, no, I'm not doing it. Not going to get involved in that. But also it does highlight that Boaz probably could have got away with just being like, do you know what? I might be supposed to redeem this family line, but this woman is foreign. She's not an Israelite. I do not have to do that. I'm going to bow out on this one.
I think that's absolutely true. He could have if,
He had an out.
He did.
But he did the right thing. So basically we're saying it's good to have good character.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. We can learn that from Ruth.
We can learn that. Faithfulness, good character. Now, Ruth, on the other hand, she pulls some bold moves. Like, let's give it to her. First, she ties herself to Naomi.
That's what she wants.
She ties herself to Naomi, first off. Naomi tries to get rid of her daughter-in-law. She's like, I'm going back to my people. They're not your people. You're going to fare better here. I'm never going to have children again for you to marry. There's no one for you to marry there. Yeah. Get out of here. It's like the person trying to like throw rocks at the dog. You know.
What?
I don't know. I've just got that in my head. It's like some movie.
Leave me.
Leave me.
It's better for you if you stay here.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
You're totally referencing Game of Thrones.
Am I?
Yeah.
I read it.
Yeah. You're referencing when she throws stones at
the
Will.
I am. I am.
Anyway.
I read it. So Naomi tries to get rid of her daughter-in-law, but Ruth, she's faithful. She says, no, where you go, I go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. And I'm going to die with you.
She's a good person.
She throws in. She's faithful. And then because of that faithfulness, Boaz hears about that. And he's like, I've heard of your faithfulness. And that's actually part of the context of why he blesses her. Then again, when she goes to him at night, it is a bold move. She does put herself out there. She could have been rejected. She could have been thought of as many other things, which is why she had to go at night. And so she's bold. She's brave. She puts herself out there.
So it is a story of like, if you walk in character, in like loyalty, in going over and above the principles of the law, as opposed to just like following them to be a good person, but like going over above, then God moves.
Yeah. God loves to use faithful people. God loves to use bold people. And God loves to use all kinds of people. Even
people that would be outsiders. Like Ruth.
Even outsiders like you.
Yeah, I know. Thanks, God. And that also brings out the fact, this is a really hard thing to say. They are kind of in a transactional business thing. Like, she's like, you can have my field a bit, and, it'll be better for everyone. And there is a kind of bit about how you're like, okay, it's good to think about people's character if you're thinking about binding yourself to them for life. Like that, like while we shouldn't apply it entirely to dating, there is something about it's not very romantic. It is much more transactional. I don't think we should start being transactional and like trading fields in order to get married. But they're thinking about some bigger pictures than just how much they love each other, right?
That is a very good point.
I kind of hate myself for making that point, but
they're not blinded by romance. But how many couples have we seen that are blinded by romance and not thinking about practical consequences or implications of the romance?
If the other person is a good person. Yeah.
That too.
Yeah. And whether it's going to be good for like a bigger picture thing. And on that note, don't read Ruth like as a dating guide, but do try to be a good person.
Follow God and trust God in the details.
Yeah. And you don't have to get married to be worth anything. But as we always end it on, Jesus.
Boom.
But Jesus. Boom. And that was About That Bible with Every Nation NYC. Remember to subscribe for more videos, rate and review us. You can also find the Bible reading plan that we are reading this year in the show notes if you would like to try and read the Bible in a year. It's worth it. Trust me. Remember to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at About That Bible, and we will see you soon. See you later.